There's something quietly happening in the world right now, but almost no one is really talking about it. Some of the most self-aware, emotionally aware, and thoughtful people are slowly stepping back from society. Not in a loud or dramatic way, not with anger or frustration. They're simply pulling away. They post less, they speak less, they leave spaces that once felt normal. From the outside, it can look confusing, almost like they've lost interest in life. But what's really happening is much deeper than that. Even thinkers like Carl Jung explored this kind of shift long ago. He believed that as a person becomes more aware of their inner world, their relationship with the outer world begins to change, and not always in a comfortable way. Most of society runs on patterns that people don't question. Daily routines, social expectations, career paths, conversations. It all works because people move along with it without thinking too deeply. But when someone starts to see beyond those patterns, everything begins to feel different. For example, imagine someone who used to enjoy scrolling social media for hours. It felt normal, even relaxing. But after a certain level of awareness, they begin to notice how repetitive it is. The same opinions, the same arguments, the same need for attention. What once felt entertaining now feels draining. Or take a workplace situation. Someone who was once highly motivated, chasing promotions and recognition, suddenly finds themselves sitting in meetings thinking, "Why does this feel so forced?" The conversations sound scripted. The goals feel disconnected from anything meaningful. They're not lazy, they're just no longer driven by the same things. This is where the shift becomes visible. Once you see these patterns clearly, it's hard to go back to participating in them the same way. It's like waking up in a room where everyone else is still following a script. You don't feel better than them, but you also can't fully relate anymore. And that creates a kind of quiet distance. You might still be around people, still talking, still showing up, but inside, something has changed. There's a gap between how you see things and how most people around you see them. And maintaining that gap takes energy. Think about how often you adjust yourself just to keep things smooth, holding back thoughts, agreeing with things you don't fully believe, acting interested in conversations that feel surface level. Now imagine doing that every day. Eventually, it becomes exhausting. So naturally, something inside you begins to pull you away, not out of dislike for people, but out of the need to protect your energy. You might start declining invitations more often, spending more time alone, reducing how much you engage in unnecessary conversations. This isn't isolation in a negative sense, it's refinement. Here's another example. A person who used to enjoy debates or arguments might suddenly lose interest, not because they don't have opinions, but because they start seeing how most arguments are driven by emotion rather than understanding. They realize that people are often defending positions without really examining them, and instead of getting involved, they step back. Not out of weakness, but clarity. There's also a deeper sensitivity that develops. You start noticing things you didn't notice before. Tension in conversations, hidden frustration, the way people say one thing but feel another. For example, being in a crowded place might start to feel overwhelming even if nothing obvious is wrong. It's not the noise alone, it's the constant movement, the emotional energy, the lack of stillness. So you begin to choose quieter environments. Another major shift happens with identity. For years, people operate through roles: the successful professional, the responsible family member, the social friend. These roles help structure life. But once you start questioning who you are beyond those roles, performing them can feel unnatural. Imagine someone who built their identity around being successful at work. After this inner shift, they might still go to the same job, but something feels off.
The role they're playing doesn't match how they actually feel inside, and pretending becomes tiring. So instead of forcing it, they slowly step away. Maybe not all at once, but gradually. This is often misunderstood. People assume something is wrong, that the person is losing motivation or becoming distant, but in many cases, they are becoming more aligned with themselves. They are choosing truth over performance. There's also a practical side to this. Maintaining awareness in environments that don't support it requires constant effort. You have to stay grounded, aware, and emotionally balanced while everything around you pulls in different directions. That effort builds up over time, so stepping back becomes necessary. It creates space, and that space is where real clarity begins to form. For example, someone who spends more time alone might start noticing what actually brings them peace. Not what looks good, not what others expect, but what genuinely feels right. They might discover they enjoy simpler things more: reading, walking, creating something without pressure. And slowly, their priorities begin to shift. They stop chasing things that don't align with them. They become more selective with their time. They value depth over constant activity. This doesn't mean they disconnect from life. It means they reconnect in a more honest way. So if you've been feeling the urge to step back, to simplify, or to create distance from certain environments, don't rush to see it as a problem. It might be a sign of growth, a sign that your awareness is expanding and that you need space to adjust to that change. This phase isn't about disappearing forever. It's about realigning. Because when you return to the world, you don't come back as the same person. You come back clearer, more grounded, and more intentional about how you live. And that changes everything.